Kratos ranks with Mario and Master Chief in the pantheon of video game characteristics. The first God of War game, released in 2005, introduced players to a merciless Spartan warrior shaped by savagery and plagued by his history. Kratos carved a violent route through Greek mythos in subsequent titles released in the 2000s and early 2010s. At their best, these games depict a genuinely tormented man confronted with the monster he's become. At their worst, they cement Kratos as a personification of brutality. The revival of the series in 2018 with God of War marked the state of a more serious take on the ruthless antihero, one that has received near-universal acclaim for its presentation of themes of parenthood and redemption. So today, we're going to take a trip down memory lane to see just how much our boy, or technically boy's father, has evolved. When players first saw Kratos in 2005's God of War, they were given a very accurate depiction of the man. The ghost of Sparta would be throughout the majority of the franchise. The deaths of Kratos' wife and daughter, as revealed in a flashback in the original God of War, put the events of the series in action. The first casualties in a line of betrayals that define his character arcs. Kratos, after rising through the ranks to become a general, commands an army of warriors to lay siege to Sparta's rivals. When his men are defeated in battle, Kratos vows his life to Ares, the god of war, in order to change the tide of the war. Ares dupes Kratos into cutting his last remaining link to mankind, his family, when Kratos slaughters in a frenzy while massacring in the god's name. Kratos is overcome with grief after realizing what he's done. Distraught and resentful, he serves the other gods of Olympus, who promise him relief from his misery. But after years of executing their instruction and finally slaying Ares himself, he discovers this was just another deception. In his pursuit of vengeance, Kratos' alliances with Titans, dwellers of the underworld, and other deities all ended similarly, in a path of destruction, and killed opponents to take Kratos no closer to peace. While the first God of War established Kratos' aloof and vengeful image for most of the series' Greek era, the games that followed it gradually expanded on the Ghost of Sparta's character by providing more insights about his traumatic past. Kratos is depicted as a man more than capable of mercy throughout the God of War Chains of Olympus and God of War Ascension prequels set before the original game, showing surprising restraint in the pursuit of his goals, and even expressing respect and gratitude to the mortals and gods who helped him on his journey while reserving his rage for his foes. Unfortunately, despite Kratos' efforts to protect his integrity upon his elevation to godhood, his resentment of the gods of Olympus's casual brutality and the lingering remorse he felt for slaying his loved ones gradually pushed the Ghost of Sparta to embrace his worst impulses. The rising frustration with the godly peers reached a boiling point in God of War Ghost of Sparta when Kratos realized that the Olympians had imprisoned and tortured his mother, Callisto, and brother Deimos for decades in order to avoid a prophecy that predicted their death. Kratos vowed vengeance on Olympus after learning that everyone he loved had been snatched from him by the gods. By God of War 2, Kratos had succumbed to his anger, sending the Spartans into war against the city of Rhodes just to satisfy his bloodlust. After being betrayed and slain by Zeus, Kratos embarked on a crazy mission to assassinate the king of Olympus, showing no compassion in his previous quests. Kratos grew even more brutal than in the first game, slaying monsters and mortals in order to reach the Sisters of Fate and reverse his death at Zeus's hands. Even after learning from Athena that murdering Zeus would bring the world to its knees, Kratos sought vengeance and declared war on all of Olympus. Kratos proved in God of War 3 that there was no longer any limitations to the lengths he was ready to go to exact his revenge. Overwhelmed by fury, he slaughtered Olympian after Olympian, wreaking havoc on Greece and putting thousands of people to death. However, Kratos' ascension to Olympus demonstrated that the Ghost of Sparta still had a fair amount of humanity within him through his affection for Hephaestus' daughter, Pandora, who bore a striking resemblance to Kratos' daughter and wasn't afraid to criticize him for the destruction he caused in his pursuit of vengeance. By the end of God of War 3, Kratos realized that claiming revenge against the gods would not free him of the remorse he felt for killing his family, and that his pursuit for vengeance had brought Greece to her knees. Fortunately, Kratos had a near-death experience during his final battle with Zeus, which allowed him to reconcile with the spirits of his family, who urged him to let go of his guilt. While Kratos did murder Zeus, He did it to put an end to his oppressive rule and give the people of Greece a chance to rebuild their lives free of Olympus's cruelty. The reboot of God of War takes set an unspecified number of years later, after Kratos has established a family in the Norse god's kingdom with his wife, a fellow warrior called Faye, and son Atreus. This relationship with Faye, which plays out off-screen, shaped the God of War that players were introduced to in the 2018 reboot just as much as his newfound fatherhood. Given Kratos' massive kill count, many longtime fans of the character thought it would be difficult to grow him into a more emotionally open character. But the creators of 2018's God of War managed to make the shift feel really natural by acknowledging what Kratos has done and how his actions have damaged him. Rather than downplaying or ignoring Kratos' past actions in order to avoid confusing new fans or streamline his development, God of War and God of War Ragnarok openly addressed the events of previous games in order to demonstrate how each act of betrayal and violence shaped Kratos into the man he is now. God of War 2018 begins with Faye's death, leaving Kratos to handle single parenthood and the unsolved questions she left him. Though not under ideal conditions, this allows Kratos to find himself and confront the emotions he had avoided in prior games. There was no running away from his anguish this time. Disregarding his flaws would mean risking seeing them reflected in his son. He had kept his own background and Atreus' demigodhood hidden from Atreus until Faye's death. But confronted with the reality of Atreus gaining powers he doesn't understand, he decides he must reveal the dark secrets of his history. This informs the core conflict at the heart of the reboot. While Kratos and Atreus' journey to fulfill his wife's final desire to scatter her ashes at the top of the highest mountain in the 9 worlds, the two secure something Kratos never had in the previous games: an entourage. Kratos first opposes the father-son duo's unexpected family dynamic with the dwarven brothers Brock and Sindri and the Norse god of wisdom, Mimir. He isolates himself from them, refusing to call them by anything other than reductive nicknames, such as Head for Mimir. Even his own son is referred to as Boy rather than Atreus. By Ragnarok, that prickly demeanor has softened considerably. He calls Atreus, Mimir, and the rest of his crew by their names throughout the game. Part of his evolution may be traced back to the conclusion of God of War, when Kratos and Atreus scattered Faye's ashes, revealing yet another secret bloodline. Faye was a giant, hence Atreus is half giant and half god. A prophecy predicts that Kratos will die soon, and that Atreus, known as Loki among the giants, will be involved in his death in some way. Kratos, like Atreus, is taken aback by the discovery of Faye's background and must accept that he has no solutions. This is a problem he cannot solve. On top of that, he understands that he must immediately prepare Atreus for a future without him, and with that understanding comes vulnerability. He is wrestling with his faults and attempting to come to terms with the fact that he must now rely on his newfound connections to fill in the gaps in Atreus' growth. That's particularly the case when it comes to channeling his emotions and handling anger, since, historically, when he lets out that emotion, it doesn't end well. And this is where Ragnarok picks off. This is how the man Kratos walked down different paths in his life to become the alpha he is. Have you played the latest installment to fulfill Kratos' destiny as the man himself? Will he ever become a god that is duly worshipped, as Odin asked? Comment your thoughts below. We'll see you next time. Till then, stay mythically mad.